30 seconds.
Sorry, I'm late. Password issues.
Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4.
Recording in progress.
Good evening and welcome to the January 6, 2025 regular meeting of the Mayor and City Council. You may have noticed first off that there is no gavel or gong to open this meeting. That is because we are doing this virtually. We did not expect we were going to be doing it virtually, but we have been, we're in the midst of a snowstorm, so we're doing this virtually. I will also note before we start that item number 11 on our agenda, policy discussion on the Spectrum sketch plan amendment, has been canceled as the applicant has withdrawn the application. So we will not be going over that agenda item for those of you who are tuning in for that. Okay, we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to ask Councilmember Jamil Hernandez to lead us in the pledge tonight.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Jamil. Next on our agenda is reflection, and I will first say Happy New Year to everyone. I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday season. And I want to make note before we go into a moment of silence that, as I mentioned earlier, we're in the midst of a snowstorm, and we have had more than 6 inches thus far, and probably more to come, even during the recording of this meeting. And I want to express on behalf of our council and our residents our appreciation to our public works crews who've made a full pass of the city of Gaithersburg already and will be continuing through the night to make our roads passable. They are the best in the business. We're very proud of them. Tanisha, I hope you will share our gratitude. And with that, let's have a moment of silence, please. Thank you all very much. Next on our agenda is the approval of minutes. And tonight we have before us 2 sets of minutes. The first being from the regular session on Monday, December 2nd. What is the pleasure of the council?
Move approval of the minutes from the regular meeting on December 2nd.
Second.
Okay, I'm going to call the roll so everyone can record their vote and be heard. So I'll start. I'm just going to go in the order that I see you on my screen. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Councilmember Hernandez?
Aye.
Councilmember Harris?
Aye.
Councilmember Henderson?
Aye.
Councilmember McNulty?
Aye.
And Councilmember Wu?
Aye.
Okay, that carries unanimously. Next, we have the minutes from the work session on Monday, December 9th. What is the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, move approval of the minutes of the work session dated Monday, December 9th, 2024.
Second.
Okay, I'll call the roll. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Councilmember Hernandez?
Aye.
Councilmember Harris?
Aye.
Councilmember Henderson?
Aye.
Councilmember McNulty?
Aye.
And Councilmember Wu?
Aye.
All right. Thank you all very much. Next, we're going to go into presentations. And the first presentation we have tonight comes from our special guest, our wonderful senator from District 17, Cheryl Kagan, who's going to give us a bit of a briefing on what to expect in the upcoming session. Cheryl, welcome and take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's such an honor to be the senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville. I'm just going to speak briefly. I am in Annapolis already because I didn't want to risk missing any votes or anything. So Happy New Year and thank you to the Public Works folks and everyone who makes Gaithersburg such an extraordinary city, including each of you. Today, I have to start by just acknowledging that it's January 6th, the 4-year anniversary of the terrible attack on our police officers, our public safety personnel who were trying to defend the U.S. Capitol and our democracy, including our friend, Sergeant Aquilino Gonell, who was a guest at the Gaithersburg Book Festival. And so I just want to acknowledge him. I'm also here on behalf of our 3 fabulous delegates, Delegate Julie Polakovich-Carr, Delegate Joe Vogel, and Delegate Ryan Spiegel, who you guys know just a little bit from his tenure on the City Council. The legislative session is 90 days. It begins this Wednesday at noon. We have a heavy lift because they're projecting budget shortfalls of $2.7 billion with a B, billion dollars in this coming year. We're going to have to be pretty creative and pretty ruthless. So there are a lot of worthy causes and programs that may not get the funding that they had hoped. And that's even before the Trump administration starts doing its mischief and in cutting or crafting policies or decisions that could affect Maryland and our part of the world especially. I am still the vice chair of Education, Energy, and the Environment and Elections, and I'll be busy, as always, with election legislation, with 911, including 988, the free mental health and suicide prevention hotline. Nonprofits, I'll have 3 bills for the nonprofits, and work for consumer protection. Want to give a quick mention that on Wednesday, January 22nd, the 4 of us will be hosting an online, a virtual Zoom town hall meeting. Encourage all Gaithersburg residents to join us for that. You can get the link through the email newsletter that I just sent out. You can email me, call us, whatever. We want to make sure that as many people as possible are signed up to join us. And we'll get that out on social media even more in the weeks to come. But want to give you a heads up, 7:30 on the 22nd. Very importantly, the General Assembly, in an effort to save taxpayer money, is closing off all of the 301 phone numbers to reach the General Assembly. So if you want to reach my office, you have to use the 410 number, not the 301 number. Email might be the best and easiest, but all that information is going to be available in my newsletters and online. But I just don't want people frustrated calling and then not reaching me and my staff. Legislative bond initiatives. The 4 of us are going to be working with the governor and his folks to see whether we can get state funding to support your beautiful city hall. In the event that that funding for that is not in the governor's budget, the wonderful Tom Lonergan-Seeger, Tanisha Briley, and other staffers, and each of the mayor and council will be brainstorming to come up with other worthy projects to try to persuade my Senate colleagues that they are worthy of funding. And so we'll come up with some good ideas for that, because Gaithersburg always deserves a little bit of state support when we can find it. Again, this is going to be a tough year. So the big dollars are not going to be available this year, and maybe not for the next few years to come. And with that, I will wrap up. I promised I would be quick. So that's quick. Mark the phone numbers, mark the date on your calendar, January 22nd. And Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you all.
Thank you, Senator. We appreciate you taking the time to give us this preview and to make sure the lines of communication are open. As always, you're always incredibly responsive and a terrific partner. Does anybody have any questions for Senator Kagan before we let her do her thing?
I'm going to do my thing.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. We will definitely be in touch, and we'll be marking our calendars for the January 22nd D17 Town Hall. Thank you for letting us know about that.
Absolutely. Thank you all. Take care. Find me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, all the places, and my kibitz. Bye. Take care.
Excellent. Thank you. Bye. Okay, next on our agenda, we're still in presentations, and we're going to move on to a couple of proclamations. The first, tech team, if you could bring up Leslie McDonald, and we will do our proclamation for Financial Wellness Month. And I'll have Leslie read the background material, and then I'll read the proclamation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here today to request that the City of Gaithersburg recognize January 2025 as Financial Wellness Month in the City of Gaithersburg. The background for this item, the city recognizes, I lost my copy. The City of Gaithersburg recognizes Financial Wellness Month in January as part of our holistic approach to increasing the financial stability and well-being of Gaithersburg residents. Financial Wellness Month is a time to assess finances, income, and debt, and make plans to achieve financial goals. The city provides tools, education, and resources to support the financial health of all Gaithersburg families, including our Financial Wellness Coalition that provides education and helps people access low-income banking products. The city partners with the Montgomery County Community Action Agency to provide free tax preparation at Casey Community Center. And the Gaithersburg Financial Empowerment Center provides free financial counseling that helps residents pay down debt, improve their credit, use budgeting tools, and save for the future. Together, we can all help families improve their financial stability and achieve their dreams.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Leslie. So I'll read the proclamation of the Mayor and City Council of Gaithersburg. Whereas the month of January is recognized as Financial Wellness Month, which reminds us to start the new year focusing on financial well-being and setting financial goals for the year to come. And whereas creating a budget, reviewing credit reports and debts, and setting financial goals helps families be resilient and prepared for emergencies. And whereas maintaining good financial health improves stability and makes goals like home ownership and comfortable retirement attainable. And whereas the City of Gaithersburg, through its Financial Empowerment Center, provides tools, support, and resources at no cost to help families improve their financial well-being. Now, therefore, I, Judd Ashman, by the power vested in me, as Mayor of Gaithersburg, do hereby proclaim January 2025 as Financial Wellness Month in the City of Gaithersburg, and join with members of the Gaithersburg Financial Empowerment Center and our partners to encourage residents to take time to assess their financial health, setting themselves on a path to prosperity. Proclaim the 6th day of January 2025. Thank you very much. And next, appreciate it, Leslie. Next, we're going to move on to
Mr. Mayor, if I could, before Leslie, I'm sorry I put my hand up. I just wanted to take a moment to thank Leslie, because some of you may have heard and let the community know that Leslie is moving on to the next stage of her career. And this may be the last time we see her in a council meeting. Sorry to cut you off like that, Judge. I just didn't want her to go without getting recognized for the great work she's done over the last several years. The inaugural director of the FEC, she's brought it as far as it has. Hundreds of residents, thousands of dollars saved. Leslie, I just wanted to take a moment to thank you for all you did to get this up and running.
Well, thank you all, and I certainly appreciate the council's support for the financial empowerment work. It's really making a difference for residents. Thank you.
Thank you. And Tom, no worries. I'm glad you interrupted me for that. And my understanding, Leslie, is that you're going to go do similar work for Howard County, correct?
Exactly.
They're going to be very lucky to have you. We're going to miss you. You've left big shoes, but you really done a great job getting our Financial Empowerment Center off the ground. And I think it was initiated by Tawana Lofton, and you came in and really took it to the next level. And, you know, hopefully we'll find somebody who can carry it on, because it's a wonderful, wonderful program. Thank you so much for your work here.
Thank you.
Okay, tech team, if you could bring up Renee Nicolosi, our Community Services Division Manager, and then we're going to do the proclamation for the days of service in the City of Gaithersburg. Here's Renee.
Good evening. The city is proud to issue a proclamation to honor the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and to encourage participation in the countywide Montgomery County Volunteer Center volunteer opportunities posted throughout the year. The Montgomery County Volunteer Center is excited to offer MLK Days of Service on January 18 and 19 of this year and continue the tradition of honoring Dr. King through service. For anyone interested in participating in any of the many days of service projects, please visit the county's website. It's a very long link here. Basically, it's Montgomery County Volunteer Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Yeah, if you just go and Google Montgomery County MLK Day Volunteer Center, you're gonna get to the right link. But it's true, it's a long link. MontgomeryCountyMD.gov/volunteer center/volunteers/MLK.html. So I just read it for the record, but it's going to be a lot easier to Google it. Okay, I'm going to read the proclamation of the Mayor and City Council of Gaithersburg. Whereas the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. dedicated his life to the advancement of the fundamental principles of freedom, opportunity, and equal justice for all. And whereas Dr. King promoted nonviolence and compassion, and his leadership and vision continues to inspire millions of Americans who strive toward his dream of civil equality. And whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day honors his legacy and provides an opportunity for reflection and action in keeping with his determination to eliminate discrimination and break down barriers to access and participation. And whereas Montgomery County is hosting Day of Service opportunities for volunteers to help the community's most vulnerable, keeping with the spirit of Dr. King's message of nurturing an equitable and inclusive society. Now, therefore, I, Judd Ashman, by the power vested in me as mayor of Gaithersburg, do hereby proclaim January 18 and 19, 2025, as days of service in the city of Gaithersburg to honor the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and encourage all residents to consider participating in service projects that strengthen our community and foster a spirit of equality and inclusiveness, not only during these days, but throughout the year. Proclaim this 6th day of January 2025. Renee, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next. Let's see. Okay, next we have Tom Lonergan Seeger, and if you could bring up Eric Perla, tech team, that would be great, because next we're going to have a presentation on where we are with our parking permit program.
Thank you for that, Mayor. Good evening. Good evening, council members, and Happy New Year. I see that some of my parking friends are populating here on the screen as the tech team pulls up the PowerPoint. As you know, staff has been hard at work on researching, designing, and ultimately, hopefully, implementing a new permit parking program for the city of Gaithersburg. This new program will ultimately replace the obsolete myriad of residential and commercial permit parking programs that currently exist across the city. Tonight, we're here to provide the community with an update on the new program's status. Before I get started, I'd like to thank and acknowledge the members of the Permit Parking Ad Hoc Committee with whom I've been working closely for quite some time now, including Brian Helms and Eric Perla, who are here with me tonight, as well as Sharon Disk and Lieutenant Chris Vance, who are in our virtual waiting room should any questions arise regarding commercial parking or enforcement matters. But many others have also been working tirelessly with this initiative, including Brian Fields, Sergeant Lester Rice, Lieutenant Willie Delgado, Gretchen Wyrick, Kirk Eby, Sebastian Andian, and Steve Marquina. And to each of them, I do want to thank them for their time and expertise. So starting with the first slide, which, by the way, kudos and credits, lots of cooks involved with the content of tonight's presentation, but the graphics exclusively belong to Sharon Disk. Thank you for her creativity on that. Next slide, please. Tonight, we're here just to give you a brief update on the progress, the program objectives, and the next steps, which include technology, the regulatory changes, and ultimately implementation. Next slide. So it's been a relatively long road. As you know, we started this process nearly 2 years ago when we had a conversation with you in the community about the need to really bring our parking permit program into the 21st century. We had a conversation about what we wanted to get out of this, how it would be administered, how it would be enforced, and what the impact would be upon the community. And from there, this ad hoc committee was established. And the work we've undertaken, mostly they, I like to give credit to the staff that's put so much time and talent into this. This is really building a new program from the ground up. So it involved a lot of research, what other communities are doing, not just in the region, but nationally, what kind of regulatory changes would be involved, what are the best practices, and as we're going to discuss tonight, some of the technology solutions. We also wanted to know what was afflicting and concerning the community. So we conducted a community survey about their availability of parking, how many cars did they own, concerns, causes, and what were their top priorities for a new program. And we presented the results of that survey along with some updates on program eligibility, administration, and regulatory changes last spring. For the last several months, staff has been hard at work at drafting ordinance and regulation changes, as well as the procurement process was initiated for the software that will be required to implement this program. Next slide, please. The program objectives, summary of those we put together tonight is to, as I said, consolidate the administration of the various programs, keep existing areas. This is a key with residential permits. We've committed to the communities that already have the parking permit programs in their neighborhoods. They can keep them and will not have to start from scratch. We heard about the need for increased enforcement. That's an expectation as well. Criteria for new areas. It won't just be because we're being asked, but because a demonstrated problem can be confirmed through data. And we want to be able to anticipate the impacts of these newly designated areas upon nearby streets. Next slide. So as part of this, we're going to examine strategies that reduce the impacts of HOA and multifamily management policies that may increase off-property parking. In short, if applications come into the city that include homes within an HOA neighborhood, we are going to look at the HOA's bylaws and rules to see if there's anything that's happening in there that might be creating or exacerbating a problem in a community. We are using public safety and equitable standards to craft and administer the regulations. And of course, we hope to improve customer service with automation and self-service. Next. So like I said, tonight we're really here to talk about two key aspects of this program, the technology and the regulatory changes. And from there, I'm going to turn it over to my friend and colleague, Brian Helms, for the technology part of this. Brian.
Good evening. I'm Brian Helms from the city's Information Technology Department. And if we can go to the next slide, please. The excellent quotes are also to be attributed to Sharon. I didn't have anything to do with them or the graphics, but they're great. So one more slide, if you would, please. The city has an existing parking enforcement system from Passport Labs Incorporated. This system is used for parking enforcement only and does not issue or manage parking permits. The city has a variety of residential and commercial parking permit programs that are run in different ways by different staff, all using different methodologies. A major goal of this initiative is to acquire a single comprehensive parking management system that can process residential and commercial parking permit applications, transfers, and renewals, as well as the issuance of temporary and guest permits. This same system will also provide all parking enforcement functionality. Next slide, please. The new parking management system will be provided by a vendor selected by a request for proposal process. The system will utilize permit zone address information provided by the city's geographic information system to restrict residential and commercial parking permits to applicants with addresses confirmed to be within a given permit parking zone. Next slide, please. Administration and management of parking permits is being consolidated into the Planning and Code Administration Department. Planning and Code staff will process both online and in-person applications and will review supporting material provided during permit application to ensure that applicants reside or work within the requested permit parking zones. Next slide, please. Police staff will continue to provide parking enforcement for a variety of parking violations, including permit parking only, or excuse me, permit parking only. Oh, I got that right. No parking zones, handicapped parking, and limited time parking. Letters will continue to be sent to owners of vehicles issued parking tickets, and we will continue to apply holds on registration renewals for vehicles with unpaid tickets by way of the Maryland Motor Vehicle Administration. As part of the request for proposal, we are also evaluating the potential benefits of adding license plate recognition technology to parking enforcement vehicles to potentially increase the speed of enforcement. Next slide, please. Residential and permit parking permits in the new system will have costs associated with them. The new system will process both online and in-person payments for parking permits as well as ticket payments. The system will also integrate into the city's financial package, Tyler's Enterprise ERP system, formerly known as Munis. Next slide, please. This slide shows a brief timeline of the request for proposal process. The scoring committee is holding system demonstrations with the finalists over the next 2 weeks, and we plan to return to you on February the 3rd with a resolution to award a contract to the selected system provider. Implementation of the new system will take place in spring, with the system go live by July 1 alongside of the new parking regulations. I'll now turn things over to Eric.
Good evening, everybody. And I hope everyone had a very relaxing and happy new year. I will be providing a few updates with respect to the legal and regulatory aspects of the permit parking program. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. There are two changes that are required and being contemplated for the establishment and implementation of the permit parking program. Currently, City Code Section 1417A provides the legal authority to issue parking permits for residential areas and lays out the basic rules and regulations that govern the current use of those parking permits. The current language of Section 1417A only applies to residential areas and has become increasingly outdated. Moreover, as currently written, Section 1417A does not expressly allow for the adoption of city regulations to carry out the intended comprehensive permit parking program. As some of you may recall, on July 1st, 2024, this body adopted an ordinance which amended City Code Section 2-6 for the purpose of exempting the city from having to comply with the county's permit parking program. Prior to that code amendment, the city was required to follow the county's laws regarding residential parking permits. Practically speaking, that code amendment laid out the groundwork to allow the city to establish its own permit parking program outside the framework of the counties. The next slide you'll see will delve into the specifics of Section 1417A. And the second necessary change entails the adoption of permit parking regulations that lay out the detailed framework of the new permit parking program, and I will discuss those particulars in later slides. The code amendment for 1417A entails a comprehensive rewrite of the code section that essentially reduces the section to four main parts. The first is legitimate government interest. This subsection A will provide an explanation of the ongoing issues the city is having with respect to parking. This includes hazardous traffic conditions, overburdening of residential streets by overflow parking, air and noise pollution, safety concerns, and interference with the use and enjoyment of private property. The primary purpose of this subsection is to establish the city's legitimate government interest in regulating parking on the city streets. There's been a Supreme Court ruling that held a parking program constitutional based on the fact that the local government's parking law did clearly outline the government's purpose, so keeping this subsection A is necessary and important. The second would be the authority to enact regulations. As stated before, the current code section does not include that authority. This subsection B will establish the legal authority for the city manager to adopt regulations for the purpose of implementing the new permit parking program. And this will allow the city to amend regulatory provisions in a manner that is less cumbersome than a code amendment. The third change to the code amendment would be to establish the permit fees. And then the fourth would be to establish the enforcement authority for parking violations. This subsection D will allow the enforcement authority of the permit parking program pursuant to section 14.4. The slide, it's supposed to say 14.4 and 14.5. That's my fault, which allows the removal and impoundment of vehicles and issuances of notices of violations. Next slide, please. The draft regulations are also divided into four main sections: mission and purpose, residential permit parking program, miscellaneous permit parking programs and agreements, as well as the enforcement aspect of it. Next slide. The regulations are going to outline all the aspects of the residential permit parking program, including the general framework, the creation of permit parking districts and zones. Existing permit parking programs will be automatically adopted into this new framework. The regulations will also lay out the application and review process for creating, modifying, and/or discontinuing a permit parking zone. And finally, the process and procedure residents will be required to follow in order to obtain parking permits once a permit parking zone has been established. This will include eligibility requirements as well as the conditions applicable to parking permits once they are obtained. Next slide, please. The regulations outline various provisions regarding miscellaneous permit parking programs and agreements. One of the main things included under this miscellaneous parking program section is the establishment of the regulatory framework of the city's new commercial permit parking program. Likewise, this section will also expand on the general notion that existing parking programs will be automatically adopted into the regulatory framework if existing programs do not contain provisions regarding permit eligibility, permit conditions. The section will clarify the manner in which the existing permit parking programs will be governed. One more thing would be the establishment of the city's regulatory authority to create future programs based on any legitimate government interest that may arise in the future. Next slide, please. Here's a brief overview of the city's new commercial parking program. Much like the residential program, this section outlines the application process and minimum conditions necessary for the creation, modification, and/or discontinuation of parking permit sectors, as they are called, as well as the criteria commercial entities will be required to meet in order to be eligible for the commercial parking permits. Conditions necessary for the creation of a commercial sector include the need for a sector to be within a specific zoning district as described in the city's zoning code, and the need for a sector to contain at least one city-regulated parking facility within the sector's boundaries. The commercial parking program further lays out the process for obtaining a permit once a sector is created, as well as the conditions permit holders must abide to once they obtain such a permit. Next slide, please. The miscellaneous parking permit section also expands on the notion that existing parking agreements will be automatically integrated into the new regulatory scheme. All restrictions, conditions, fees, eligibility criteria, etc., included in these agreements will be automatically adopted and adhered to. The section further establishes that particular provisions will apply to permit holders of existing agreements when those agreements do not contain terms regarding restrictions, conditions, fees, and eligibility criteria. Next slide, please. Finally, the miscellaneous parking permit section contains a regulatory grant of authority for the city to create future parking programs in light of any legitimate government interests that may arise. This provides the city needed flexibility in tackling particular parking issues as they become apparent. Again, this subsection makes clear that in the event a future parking program or a future parking agreement does not fully encapsulate all the parking provisions such as eligibility criteria. Specific provisions of the regulations will be applied by default. This will ensure that all future programs and agreements fall within the general regulatory framework that is being created. Next slide. And finally, the regulations will include an enforcement provision that specifies the Gaithersburg Police Department will be the enforcement arm of the regulations, again, pursuant to Section 14.4 and 14.5 of the City Code. They will receive all complaints related to these regulations and be able to issue parking tickets. Next slide, please. And this timeline illustrates the process that is contemplated for adopting both the City Code Amendment for Section 1417A as well as the permit parking regulations. This update, as we are speaking, is the second step of the overall timeline. As you can see, February, basically a brief synopsis would be February 3rd is the intended introduction date of the 1417A Code Amendment. March 3rd, a month later, would be the public hearing of 1417A, as well as concurrently the introduction of the parking permit regulations. And then approximately a month later, on April 7th, would be the policy discussion for 1417A, as well as a public hearing for the parking regulations. May 5th would be the adoption of 1417A with the policy discussion of the parking permit regulations. And then July 1st is contemplated as the effective date of the parking permit regulations. I will note that this timeline assumes the City Council will decide to make the parking regulations subject to a public hearing. The City Council, of course, has the discretion to determine whether or not the regulations will be subject to a public hearing pursuant to City Code Section 2-10. This is the main procedural difference between the code amendment process and the regulation adoption process. If the City Council decides to forego a public hearing at the time of the parking regulations are introduced on March 3rd, as noted in the timeline, then April 7th public hearing will not be necessary, and then a decision would ultimately be made. That decision would ultimately, for policy discussion, would occur on May 5th. Obviously, this decision is ultimately at the discretion of the council on March 3rd, the date that the parking regulations are first introduced. And that concludes that slide.
I think you need the next slide.
Next slide, Tech Team. Which is really just the conclusion. Thank you, team, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right. Thank you all so much. I guess we can, well, I'm interested to hear any questions or comments from the council in terms of whether to go to formal public hearing on the regulations or not. I would imagine even if we don't go through a formal public hearing, we'll have to have some sort of very in-depth discussion about it. But I have one question, and I'm sure that question will be answered with the introduction of the code. But Eric, I'm assuming that as part of the code, there will be some sort of appeals process for somebody. You know, we'll have drafted some sort of appeals process for somebody who's received a ticket and thinks that they've received an error or whatever. There'll be some sort of way to adjudicate that, correct?
The parking tickets will be enforced by the police department, and they will enter the typical district court process and will be appealable based on those rules.
Okay. Okay. Questions, comments? Either raise your Jamil. Why don't you go first? Jamil, you are on mute.
You think after 4 years or 5 years now, we get it. Hey, thank you guys and gals. This is a great presentation. If we can go back to packet page 31. Just a question on the timeline.
Tech team, are you able to bring back up the slide presentation?
Sure, they're working on it. Yeah, it just takes a little time.
Perfect. Thank you. So I understand staff is going through the software evaluation process now, which should be hopefully completed in the next several months. Mr. Mayor, I agree with having the public hearing on the regulations, but maybe a work session or some kind of, maybe at that public hearing or whenever think makes sense, to have, once the software and so the systems are selected, maybe some overview of that so people see what's sort of coming once it's been picked would be my question and or statement.
Like, Jamil, you're talking about sort of a demo of the software, how the workflow would look?
Yeah, just in the early days, just a high level for people, like public, to know what's coming, how, like it's going to be accessible by different there are different ways people do it, get their computer, the devices, etc., and give people an opportunity to see it and have that.
Brian Helms, does that sound doable?
I think Tanisha might have wanted to speak, Don.
Oh, okay. I didn't see her hand. Go ahead, Tanisha.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that there will certainly be a lot of education for the public once the system is selected and it goes live, right? Which doesn't happen, as you see, until July 1. I think doing a work session in advance of that, just to show the public, for example, how to register for a parking permit, that it would be too early to do that because we haven't gone live with the program. So I think I understand what you're asking, which is, let's make sure we have an opportunity for the public to understand how to interface with the new system once it goes live. And certainly there'll be a lot of education and outreach regarding that process when that happens.
Yeah, no, I just recalled when we launched the permitting system for permits and licenses, there were some things, at least that I experienced and other folks experienced in the initial rollout, that might benefit from an interaction like this. But
Brian, feel free to add anything else that you wanted to add to my answer.
I would just echo what you said, is that we'll have a very robust community engagement and outreach. We do know all the addresses, for instance, of all the people who are eligible to apply for residential parking permits. There's about 321 with the existing carry forward zones. So there's going to be letters, there's going to be mailings, there's going to be potentially email notifications, YouTube outreach. That'll probably get, quite frankly, a wider audience than these meetings typically do.
Well, we'll try not to take offense about the viewership
I tried to
of
say
our
it
meeting.
nicely, sir.
Okay, Councilmember Wu.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, gentlemen, for the presentation. This is a long time coming, and I appreciate the detailed analysis. I, for one, would support a public hearing. I think this issue has citywide implications and citywide interest that would warrant putting it before the public. I would like to hear a little bit more on the decision to basically grandfather in existing agreements versus applying those agreements against a threshold standard, whatever the case may be, to make sure that they meet the current requirements for the program.
I would say this was a matter of great debate, council member. The permit areas that were established, I think there was general agreement, have an issue within them. And so we did not see the need to upset this and restart from the ground up there. But the door is open for these neighborhoods to permit themselves, or rather, they can remove themselves from the program if they don't want it. There will be a cost associated with these permits. But we were going to start with, your program is in place, but we were not going to reevaluate 11. I don't remember what the number is, Brian. It's a number of zones that are citywide with those 300 plus homes that are in there. So we were going to start with the premise that there's a problem. The city approved them in the past. We didn't want to just pull the rug out from under them and say it no longer exists, but rather if they come to us and say that they want to petition their way out of it, they can do that. That was the thinking behind it.
Okay, yeah, I'm fine with petitioning their way out of it because, recognizing that community sentiment can change over time, and perhaps they don't want permitting. The parking situation has changed in their neighborhood. So I think that's a great idea. I do think that we should apply a criteria to the existing permits and not just grandfather them in. Assuming there is a problem, I would assume they would meet the criteria. If they don't meet the criteria, then I would assume they wouldn't need a permitting program regardless. And, just thinking, and I don't know if it's a problem, but when we first started looking into this, there were anecdotal stories of people getting permits and selling them. For example, I'm hoping, and it sounds like this program would alleviate that because of the constant registration and the requirements for a fee and the tracking to specific vehicles. I think would help get rid of that situation. But for my druthers, I would like at least some look at the existing programs. And, if there is a problem, then they meet the threshold, they're in. I'm fine with that. But I'm not comfortable with just carte blanche grandfathering in programs just because they were there in the past.
Thanks, Rob. We will definitely have a chance to have that conversation. Councilmember McNulty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have to disagree with my colleague, Councilmember Wu. I do think it's important that we grandfather these programs in. We have enough challenges trying to implement this new program without having to kind of reopen some of these cans of worms. And like Tom said, I think having the opportunity, especially when the prospect of having to pay these registration fees, community can say no, we want to opt out. There are going to be fewer of those. So I think we were trying to augment what we had, not completely start from scratch. So I think that the tack that they've taken, particularly based on the feedback that we got during the public process over the past 2 years, this is a topic that brings a lot of energy. And I think, people have been waiting a long time for this. I really appreciate the data-driven approach that the committee has taken. And I want to extend my thanks and congratulations to all of those that have been involved to get us to this point. I mean, we've been talking about parking long before I was even on this council. And of course, COVID threw a wrench into this, among many other things. I wanted to ask a couple of questions with regard to the definition of these zones and just making. When we see the regulations and when we see the ordinance, we're not going to be getting into defining these zones in these, right? These will be decisions that are made at the staff level, and then all the different zones will be living somewhere in a website. Is that like a GIS layer, for example? Am I correct in that?
As far as definitions are concerned, the regulations will define, what a parking permit district, what a parking permit zone is. I think your question is more so, as zones become created, the regulations aren't going to list each and every zone. That data will be available online or in some other format. Is that the question?
Yes.
And that is correct. So the actual regions of the zones, it's really properties, right? So properties will be defined as in or out, and then when they are, we'll have a GIS polygon, and it might be zone R1-3 or zone 1-4 or zone C1-3, depending on which district and then zone that they're in. And then we can obviously identify, or maybe not obviously through GIS, all of the different address points that are within the properties. That way, if additional addresses are added, for instance, an accessory dwelling, right, or commercial subdivides all the time, we'll know where those addresses are within the points for future applications. So all defined within our GIS.
Understand. Great. Thank you. And will Public Works or whichever department be putting out signage on the street corner, on the sidewalks, to alert drivers that this is a zoned parking section?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. I figured as much, but it's always good to get that on the record. And then I did want to agree with my colleagues in that I do think that the public hearing is going to be necessary, just based on what we've heard already through this process. I think we are opening ourselves up for unnecessary slings and arrows if we don't give the public the full opportunity to weigh in on what's being proposed. So that's all I had. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. We will go to Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, team, for the presentation. The graphics on that PowerPoint were pretty impressive. So way to go. Question about enforcement and technology behind enforcement. If memory serves me correctly, and it's always scary when I start a sentence that way, were we going to try to do tag readers with the technology? Was that a piece of it?
The short answer is we're evaluating it. The slightly longer answer is, right, there's no hang tags, there's no stickers here. All of the permits will be issued by the license plate number. So whether we have LPR or whether an enforcement officer just types the tag in, all permits will be by the license plate number. So, the thought is that this will obviously expand over time the number of properties and streets that are permit parking only. And so as you expand things, you're either spreading your butter thinner, right? You're enforcing less frequently, or we're either going to have to add enforcement officers at some time in the future, or perhaps we can use technology to be more efficient. So we are evaluating as an option in the RFP. We have requested from all proposers their LPR capabilities. And I'm sure we'll be having discussions with the city manager, within the next 3 to 4 weeks, once the scoring committee has kind of narrowed down the finalist, to figure out whether we're going to put it in the contract, or maybe it'll be an option in the contract, and we'll see how it goes for 6 or 12 months, and then maybe add it later on.
Okay, thank you. And for the public, LPRs or license plate readers.
Thank you.
Just confirming. And also, I agree with my colleagues. I would be in favor of a public hearing. There was quite a bit of interest and during the previous comment phase. We wanted to make sure that the public is still engaged in this, because they do have much to say. So we should hear it. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Lisa. I think staff, I don't know if you're counting here, but it looks like there's a pretty solid majority for public hearing, and that seems like the right idea for me as well. Jamil.
Just like a follow up, maybe for the benefit of the public, HOAs and communities that are governed by HOAs, how does the permit parking regime work independently in concert? Can households within an HOA can request it over the objection of the HOA, or vice versa? What's the interplay between those two?
The households that would be applying, not the HOA itself. So if a street and a portion of the residents on that public street are going to petition, they can do that independently of the HOA.
Can the HOA ask as its own entity?
The HOA as the applicant was not considered as part of this. These are residents that would be applying for this, or households.
Okay, and then we give you a better scenario. So like if a HOA has in its property zone areas that could benefit from a parking program regime for nearby residents, but it's not abutting residents, can it ask on behalf of residents?
Fundamentally, the issue remains you still need 60% of the residents to agree to want it. So even if the HOA says it's in the best interest, you would need 60% of people within a requested zone to want it, and that engineering, once they do a preliminary review, would agree that there is a problem and there is adequate capacity to host the number of households that are petitioning.
Thanks.
All right. Well, I want to echo the comments of gratitude and appreciation to staff for taking us this far. This is a conversation that's gone on for a while, and the reason it has is because it's complicated. It's not a simple, one size fits all approach. We have these existing parking permit programs. We have places that would like to add them. We want to try to be fair and equitable to everybody. It's been a long road because it's a complicated issue, and we appreciate you guys taking us down this road. So thank you very much for the presentation, and we look forward to our first half of the year will be on parking permit, which is great. We need to get it done. Okay, we're going to move on to public comments. It's the time the mayor and council like to hear from anybody from the public who would like to speak on city matter. We ask that you state your first off, if you'd like to speak, use the Zoom raise hand function and I'll call on you. We ask that you state your name and address or neighborhood if you prefer for the record. Keep your comments no more than 3 minutes. Do we have anybody who'd like to testify this evening?
I'm sorry. Did we skip a presentation?
Did we? Oh,
The
yes, we did.
auditors.
Yes, I am sorry. I'm rusty at this too.
The auditors.
We need to do the auditors. Okay, let me go and see who we have coming up for that presentation. And I apologize because I love the auditors report. Okay, tech team, if you could bring up Janice. So members of the public, just hold on. We're going to get to you very soon. Janice Hartman, tech team, if you could bring up our director of finance, and Christopher Lehman, our audit partner, that would be great. And Janice, take it away. And I apologize for skipping this inadvertently.
No worries. I thought we were going to get off easy. All right,
no such luck.
So good evening, Mayor and Council. The audit of the city's FY24 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, or ACFR, was completed and filed with the state of Maryland by the October 31st deadline. These documents are available on the city's website under the Finance Department. The city is also required to have a single audit, which is an organization-wide financial statement and federal awards audit of a non-federal entity, as we had more than $750,000 in expenditures of federal funds in FY24. The audit of the city's schedule of federal expenditures is still underway and will be completed before the due date of March 31st, 2025. In FY24, the general fund showed an increase in fund balance of $4.1 million compared to a budgeted decrease of $10.8 million. The increase is due to various revenue sources outperforming the budgeted amounts by $9.8 million, coupled with expense savings of $5 million. Some of the notable revenue overages include $1.2 million in intergovernmental revenue, which includes state grants for police, increased police supplement from the county for duplication of services, and shared income taxes. Additional overages of $600,000 in property tax revenue, $700,000 in amusement and hotel taxes, and $7 million in investment earnings contribute to the increase. The expense savings consist of $2.5 million in personnel, mainly due to vacancies and the associated benefit cost, along with lower overtime costs related to the mild winter that we had last year. The remaining savings is spread across various departments and accounts such as electricity, general operating supplies, and contract maintenance. Overall, the governmental fund balance, which includes the general fund, stormwater fund, CIP fund, and other non-major funds, increased $13.2 million to $192.3 million. In addition to the general fund increase mentioned above, the remaining increase in FY24 resulted from funding CIP and stormwater projects that will take place in the upcoming years. I'd like to note that the city's FY23 financial report received the Government Finance Officers Association's Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for the 46th consecutive year. This is a great achievement for the city and one the Finance Department is very proud of. The FY24 ACFR has also been submitted to this award program for consideration. So we have Chris Lehman here with us tonight from SB and Company, the city's external auditing firm, and he will complete the required audit communications and answer any questions that you might have about the audit process. So I will turn it over to Chris now.
All right. Well, thank you, Janice, and good evening, Mayor and Council. I do have a brief presentation that I'll walk through. And I will start on, it's packet page 49 that says scope of services. It's a couple pages ahead. So this presentation, brief presentation, goes through our firm and industry required communications through the audit process. As I go through this, feel free to stop me with questions, or I can just check in at the end to see if there's any questions. So we've been engaged to audit the June 30, 2024 financial statement, or what's termed ACFR, for the city. We've also provided assistance with drafting the financial statements, which that is a service we are allowed to provide under professional standards. In addition, we also completed the review of the Uniform Financial Report, or UFR. As Janice mentioned, both the UFR and the financial statements were due on October 31st, and both of those deadlines have been met. We are currently working through the single audit, which is the federally mandated audit Janice mentioned. That has a due date coming up in March, so we're well within that time frame. We see no issue with getting the single audit filed timely. Next slide, please. So on the financial statement, we issued what's termed an unmodified opinion. That's clean. That's a good opinion. And that reads that says that the financial statements are reasonably free of material misstatement. A financial statement audit isn't a forensic audit, but we are required to have a healthy skepticism of fraud as we conduct our audit, and we were not made aware or discovered any fraud during our audit process. Nor did we discover any material weaknesses in the internal controls. And then in a few slides, you'll see what we evaluated as those key internal controls. We also received the full cooperation of management. And we had no journal entries that we proposed to management, which just speaks to the quality of the record keeping, and that we're getting, clean numbers to audit through for our audit purposes. Next slide. This is just a summary of the phases of the audit. I won't go through each detail here. We spend a significant amount of time in the preliminary testing phase, where we're understanding the design and the operation of key controls, looking at cash receipts in the revenue cycle, cash disbursements, payroll testing, making sure that transactions are properly authorized, the transactions are posted to the correct account, in the correct amounts, and period testing. Final field work is after management has closed the books. All the year-end numbers have been prepared, and then we audit from those year-end numbers. It's a lot of balance sheet testing, validating cash, receivables, fixed assets, and those significant year-end numbers. Next slide. And this is just more of a funnel version of our audit process that we go through, with that, again, that second phase really being a significant amount of time of understanding the design and operation of controls. And then that third and that fourth phase is the heavy lifting that we do once the final trial balances and management's gone through their closing process. And then if you go to the next slide, this is where you'll just see a summary of our assessment of the key processes. But at a greater level, we also look at the control environment. And you'll see the 5 interrelated components there. We have concluded that there is a strong control environment for the period under audit. Typically, when there's not a strong environment, that's where we see that there could potentially be delinquencies with trying to get the financial statements done, material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in the processes, audit journal entries, things of that nature, which again, as I stated, we had none of those, but those are typically side effects you see when there's not a strong control environment. And then on the right, you'll see the key processes that We have tested with just compliance and grant management still being outstanding related to the single audit compliance work that we have coming up. But other than that, for those other areas, we've concluded that both the design and the operation of the controls were effective for the period under audit. Next, you can go to slide 55, which is just right after that title page there. Some of these I hit on at the introductory piece, but really, if we had any audit adjustments, fraud, material weaknesses that we identified, I'd be required to bring that to your all's attention as oversight for the city. If you go to the next slide, really nothing of a negative nature that I would say, or a negative nature that I would need to bring to your attention. We had no difficulties getting through the audit. We had no disagreements with management. We do ensure that we're independent of the city and that we don't have any independence issues. So I guess as boring as it could get for an audit, which I think is typically the goal, but really nothing negative that I need to bring to your attention through the process. That concludes my formal remarks. So I'll open it up if there's any questions either for Janice or myself regarding audit process.
Thank you so much, Christopher, and to Janice. Congratulations to you and your team. I mean, this is unmodified. I mean, we're not expecting any fraud, but no weakness in internal control, like no notes to management. It's like an A+. So I mean, Christopher, I know you guys can't rate it in exactly that way. But
I know. We get to use boring terminology like unmodified, and then people are like, well, what does that mean? Yeah.
Exactly. But we know what it means.
Right.
I'm taking it to mean it. I'm going to interpret it as an A+, and I really
that's very fair.
I just want to salute your work. Thank you, Christopher, so much for being our audit partner, and we'll look forward to the big one later on. But this is great, and Janice, congratulations. Any questions or comments from council members? Okay, I see Rob's hand, and I saw Neil. We'll go to Rob first, and then Neil.
Sure, I'm sure Neil asked the erudite question. I'm just going to ask, and maybe I missed it. Did we win any awards? We usually win an award.
We did. It was mentioned.
For FY23, we did. So we've submitted the FY24, but that won't be announced. It used to be spring, more along summertime is the time frame that we.
Yeah, you'll know about your 2024 statements probably middle to late summer. It takes a while for the program to review them all. But for the most recent year that the response has been received for 2023, it has been received. And it's not an easy achievement. The GFOA is very picky with their comments.
But
I guess is a way to say they're very thorough.
I'll expect an award in 24, though. So
to reiterate, though, the award that we've got for 46 years straight is the GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. 46 years in a row. Pretty good, as they say. Okay, we're going to go to Neil.
So first of all, is it true that the reason we needed a new city hall was to hold all those awards?
The wall is pretty full, but luckily now they do medallions, so it's
okay. So it's not true, but it could be. I have one picky question on the audit report. It's actually a Janice question. The process of auditing has become very clear over the years. On packet page 108, there's a balance sheet that shows committed funds and uncommitted funds in various funds. I understand why the funds in stormwater management and in the OPEB fund are committed. I'm not sure why the CIP funds are considered committed. I think this is an esoteric point, but some funds, I assume, for the various new buildings are committed, but should all the funds be committed?
By committed, it was because we've through the budget ordinance, committed those funds to be spent on CIP projects. So it's not specifically committed for one particular project, but it's for CIP projects in general. They're committed.
If we wanted to uncommit some of those at some point, we could do that, presumably.
Yeah.
I don't know why we would want to, but
yeah, this is more accounting terminology based upon the process of how the funds were raised and how they're intended to be used. So if you can, so from an accounting perspective, you all can make the decision to commit something or uncommit it or recommit it, if you will.
All right, just curious.
Yeah, so the restricted is through an outside party, right? So if it's restricted through a grant that we received, we can't unrestrict that ourselves, but committed, that's, the council committed it, you could uncommit it.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Jamil.
All right, two quick questions. An unmodified opinion is the same as an unqualified opinion for private sector accounting language?
Correct, yes. They used to call it unqualified, and then I guess to keep us gainfully employed and change the language, it's now unmodified, but it's the same difference.
Okay. And then, so no like big negative findings you went through, anything that surprised you to the upside? Anything you think you want to share?
Well, I think always meeting the deadline. I wouldn't take, the fact that the deadline was met, I don't take that lightly. I have lots. One is it's difficult to pull together a government set of financial statements on a timely basis. I have a lot of clients that unfortunately ask the state for extensions, cannot make the deadline, and to also do it with clean results not only speaks to speed, but speaks to quality, that it's being done. Things are being done throughout the year that doesn't take a year-end audit process to clean it up. I would also say, just from a financial, numbers perspective, the general fund's got a healthy fund balance. If you look at your fund balance compared to annual expenditures, that's one kind of health check that you can see, and you can see that the general fund balance has a healthy balance. I know beauty's in the eye of the beholder, but I would also say that there's a healthy balance there.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Not seeing any. Well, thank you very much, Christopher. Congratulations, Janice. Keep up the great work. And we will move on. Have a good night, guys. Okay, we're going to move back. Now we're getting to public comments. And as I said before, this is time anyone who'd like to testify, we'll give them a chance. Use the Zoom raise hand function and I'll call on you. State your name and address or neighborhood for the record. Keep your comments to no more than 3 minutes. I'm not sure if tech team is timing them, but I have a stopwatch here too. So I'm going to keep everybody honest. Do we have anybody who'd like to testify tonight? I see one hand. Tech team, if you could bring up David Mullins. And David, unmute yourself. You know the deal. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I think I'm unmuted. There we go. Yeah. Hey, David Mullins, Gateway Apartments. I just have a question because I was tuning in. Oh, first of all, Happy New Year. Nice to see y'all. I have a question because I was tuning in partially for the Spectrum portion. And I heard you say the applicant had withdrawn the application. I was just curious, kind of like what posture that's at then? Like the most, this kind of senior part they withdrew, the recent SDP, because there was a public hearing and everything. So I was just curious how far kind of back that goes. That was it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, David. Do we have any other testimonies? I'll have staff address that question, but do we have anybody else from the public who'd like to testify? Going once, going twice. Okay. I get Tanisha. Should I have Frank? Should it be you or Frank that addresses that question about what happens now? What does that mean? What's the effect of the applicant withdrawing the application?
I'm I'm happy to explain that simply that ends that application entirely. The withdrawal, we go back to the original plan without the amendment, without any question of the amendment, such that if there was a desire to come back for another amendment, a new one would have to be filed and walk through the entire process. So the withdrawal eliminates that question altogether.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that answer.
Sure.
Okay, we're going to move on to from the mayor and city council. We're going to start with Jamil.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I have a statement for the record. After closed executive session, a closed meeting was held in person by the mayor and city council on Monday, December 2nd, 2024 at approximately 8:30 p.m. pursuant to a motion adopted unanimously. The session was proposed to be closed pursuant to the general provision article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, section 3-305B1I. The appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom it has jurisdiction. The topic discussed was the deputy city attorney's assignment in the role of acting city attorney. Present at the meeting were Mayor Ashman and council members Harris, Henderson, Hernandez, McNulty, and Wu. Upon consideration of the discussion, the closed executive session was adjourned at approximately 9:23 p.m. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Jamil. We'll go to Neil.
Thanks, Mayor. So it's been almost a month since our last formal meeting, so I'd like to mention a few things that happened relating to our role in the city. We held our quarterly council in the communities, which is always a great chance for us and staff to go face to face with people in the less formal environment, get a lot of questions, comments, concerns. Heard a lot from residents, and I encourage anyone to show up when we're back in your neighborhood. We also had the annual Chamber of Commerce celebration dinner and award ceremony. It's always a great event. Couple of transportation planning board events. One was the Community Advisory Committee invited the executive board, which includes me, to interact with them and talk about ways to improve transportation, reduce congestion, improve safety. I thought it was really good. It was the first time I participated in one of those, and it was a good two-way dialogue, very informed group of community people who are interested. If anyone who's listening is interested in participating in the Community Advisory Committee for the Metropolitan Washington Area's Transportation Planning Board, please reach out to me because I have the power. And speaking of power, I was elected as the first vice chair of the Transportation Planning Board for the next year. Thank you. Thank you. I have some plans for getting the Transportation Planning Board to do some research that hopefully will guide us in our decision making going forward. And let's see, there were a lot of holidays. Hopefully everyone had good ones. Mine were great. Saw lots of family, and good times were had by all. And I just want to put in a plug for the movie A Complete Unknown about Bob Dylan. Saw it yesterday. It's fantastic. Just really great. I want to go see it again. It was that good. All right, that's it for me. I have an announcement to read here. Boards, commissions, and committee vacancies. The mayor and city council are seeking members to join a number of city boards, commissions, and committees. Joining is a way to get involved and help your community. The following have vacancies. The Animal Control Board has one veterinary representative. The Board of Supervisors of Elections needs an alternate. The Community Advisory Committee is 5 members short. That's a good group. They do very good work in portioning out grant money to groups. We could use the help. Cultural Arts Advisory Committee needs 2 new members. The Economic and Business Development Committee has 1 opening. That's a hot committee. It's hard to get into. Educational Enrichment Committee needs 4 members. The Environmental Affairs Committee has got 3 openings. The Ethics Commission is looking for a full member and an alternate. The Gaithersburg Book Festival Committee has openings for 2 more members. The Gaithersburg Parks, Arts, and Recreation Corporation is open for 8 more members. The Historic District Commission needs a commissioner and an alternate commissioner. The Multicultural Affairs Committee needs 8 members. The Old Town Advisory Committee has openings for 7 more members. The Personnel Review Board has 1 opening. The Police Advisory Committee has 6 openings. The Senior Advisory Committee has 6 openings as well. If you're interested in serving on any of the above, please send a letter of interest and resume to cityhall@gaithersburgmd.gov. For more information and official announcements, please visit the city's website at www.gaithersburgmd.gov or contact the city manager's office at 301-258-6310. That's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Neil. We're going to go to Lisa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to say Happy New Year to all my colleagues and all the residents of the city of Gaithersburg and beyond in 2025. I'm excited to be here and to see all the awesome things we're going to do this year. In 2024, attended the Naval Junior ROTC program at Gaithersburg High School. I don't know the exact number, but there were probably about, it was the promotional ceremony. There were probably about, I'm going to say, 100 kids involved in the ceremony. And the amount of discipline and structure that was put forth, it was incredible. So congratulations to all who participate in that program and providing that resource to those kids to go to Gaithersburg High School, and it makes the future look bright. So glad I was able to attend. Also attended the Gaithersburg Holiday Giving Program, and staff did an incredible job of putting that together. And also, as I understand, and Tom, correct me please if I'm wrong, not only did every kid involved in the program get a gift, but there's still money in the hopper to continue giving. So thank you all who gave and continue to give to the program, because it is effective in helping the youth who participate. Mayor and council were a big hit until Santa Claus showed up, and that was it. It was all over. But it was an incredible program, and thanks to the senior center who hosted us, and it was absolutely
Carnegie
Senior Facility who hosted us. What a beautiful facility, and treated the kids and family like royalty. It was a fantastic evening. That is it.
Thank you very much, Lisa. And by the way, I meant to say to Neil, big congratulations for your ascension to vice chair of the TPB. You've been working on that committee for a long time, and you've totally earned it, and we're very proud of you. And with that, we're going to go to Rob Wu.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I was just nodding north and south with respect to Neil's ascension. I expect him to fix all of our transit and traffic issues in the DMV. Nothing much to say, just Happy New Year. Happy to be here with my colleagues and doing great work for the city. Speaking of great work for the city, I can look out my window and see clear roads. I'm going to guess if I was in the county, that would not be the case. And so it's great to be in Gaithersburg because of the services we provide.
Thank you, Rob. I can, just to that point, my son lives in Laurel on Prince George's County side, and he's in a cul-de-sac, and they have not seen any sign of any plow as of yet. And they're sort of stuck in there. So, yeah, it makes you grateful for what you got. We're going to go to Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and absolutely echo everybody's comments. Congratulations, and big thank you to Public Works for the tireless work that began before midnight last night, prepping the roads and removing the snow. And I know it's a lot of work, and they haven't had a whole lot of practice for the past couple of years. So appreciate all the work that they're doing, and will continue to do the rest of this weekend. If you look at the weather models, there's the chance of another big one this weekend, which it's not showing up in your weather apps yet. So we'll be very curious to see if that comes to fruition. I want to add my congratulations and thanks to Neil for his service on the TPB. It's a very important committee, and being able to have somebody with Neil's understanding of transportation and the importance of investing in infrastructure is really going to be important there. So thank you. As Senator Kagan pointed out at the outset of this meeting, today is January 6th. But prior to that, we had the swearing in of our new congressional delegation. So congratulations to our new member of Congress, April Delaney, and our Senator Also Brooks. We look forward to working with you over the next few years for the benefit of our city. Also announced today from the Vatican, the Archdiocese of Washington, the Catholic Archdiocese, will have a new Cardinal Archbishop, Cardinal Robert McElroy. Formerly the Archbishop of San Diego, California, has been appointed to succeed Cardinal Gregory. So I wanted to extend my thanks to Cardinal Gregory for his leadership to the region's Catholics. I don't know if those who don't know, at age 75, all members of the clergy, especially in bishop roles, are required to submit their resignation to the Vatican. And it took 2 years, but the Pope has accepted that. So there's roughly about 14% of Gaithersburg is Catholic, like myself. That's about 10,000 people. So we want to welcome Cardinal McElroy and look forward to his service to our community. And I just want to wish everybody a Happy New Year. A lot of work to do. You've already heard some of the things that are coming before us. There's going to be a lot to do. Looking forward to the snow, but also looking forward to warmer weather and getting out back into the community and enjoying all the events with our great people of Gaithersburg. So, and thank you to staff for pulling together this virtual meeting as quickly as you did. I know that's a lot of hoops to jump through, and we had to get that muscle memory back from the pandemic. So appreciate everybody putting that into action.
Okay, thank you, Jim. I want to congratulate staff on Winter Lights. My family and I got a chance to drive through the second to last night of it. And there were so many cars, it literally took like an hour to get through, but it was really, really nice as always. And we took note of the new installations and the changes from year to year. It's really nice. So congratulations to staff on that. I'm sure if the attendance on that night was indicative of what it's been through the whole period, then I'm sure that we did really well compared to years past. I will also want to thank staff, Leah in particular, and Michelle, for helping me get a proclamation that I could give to the Quince Orchard High School football team over the last the week before the holidays. That went over really well, and as Senator Kagan mentioned, the Maryland legislative session starts this week on Wednesday. Some of the bills that both MML and the city of Gaithersburg will be tracking and may be of interest to us. There'll be thousands of bills, but there'll be one that enables municipalities to increase admissions and amusement tax, which is something that's both supported at the city level and at the MML statewide level to give municipalities that authority. There'll be a bill we've seen in years past to allow non-sworn officers to help service speed cameras on a daily basis. We have supported that in the past many times, and it hasn't been successful. This year, it wasn't a city priority per se, but it's an MML statewide priority. Our former colleague Ryan Spiegel will be introducing a similar regional transportation authority bill that he did last year and that we supported. And I'm aware that Delegate Vogel will be introducing a tenant transparency law that Jamil's very excited about. We were talking about it earlier because it basically mirrors the transparency law with regards to fees that we passed in the city of Gaithersburg. Joe Vogel wants to try to get that done statewide. So that's pretty exciting. And I'm sure there's tons of other bills that we'll be tracking and testifying on throughout the session. So we're open if you have ideas on it. And we'd love to have your feedback. As far as upcoming meetings, we hope you're going to join us next week. We're going to have a work session, hopefully in person, at 16th South Summit to talk about the alternatives for the CCOC, the Commission on Common Ownership Communities. The next regular meeting will be on Tuesday, January 21st, and you can join us hopefully in person to both, or over Zoom. Just like this is a hybrid meeting. With that, I'm going to move from the city manager, Tanisha. Do you have anything to report tonight?
Thank you, Mayor Ashman. Just a brief Happy New Year. I wish everyone a joyous and healthy 2025. Me and the staff are really looking forward to another year of serving this incredible community. Thank you for all of the compliments shared for both the public works staff who've been working since midnight last night to clear our roads, and the entire team. There was a cross-departmental team pulled together over the weekend to make sure, and throughout today, to make sure that we could pull off tonight's virtual meeting. Hard to believe it's been 3 years since we discontinued meeting virtually, which was my introduction to the city. So that we had to dust off a lot of equipment and protocols, and I think things have gone very well. So I want to thank the team for that and all of the efforts that have gone into that. And I'll make sure that they get all of your compliments as well. And then I'll just say, and I did hear from the COG call, the storm call this evening, that secondary roads for Montgomery County have not been cleared yet, which is quite disappointing and complicates things for what I need to do for our team here, because even though our roads are clear and we're good to go, we know that our staff come from other places and we want to make sure that they can get to work safely tomorrow. So I have to make some decisions tonight on that. It's unfortunate that everyone can't be as great as Gaithersburg. And then just if you have nothing to do on Friday at 6:30, there's a really small, unassuming football team playing in the Cotton Bowl in Texas. The Ohio State University will be taking on Texas on Friday for the semi. I guess it's, we're one game away from the championship. So if you've got no teams left in the fight, we welcome you. Buckeye Nation welcomes you and your cheers. Thank you.
And the Commanders play on Sunday, right? Sunday evening. Do we know?
There's against Tampa.
Against Tampa, it's the night game on Sunday, though, right?
It is.
There are Buckeyes on the Commanders team, so I'm
just for the record. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, good luck to everybody's teams. We're going to go to Economic Development Update. Tom Lonergan-Seeger.
Good evening again, Mayor. Just one update for you all tonight. The saga of the city-owned Fishman site continues, fronting East Diamond Avenue in Old Town, 315 East Diamond specifically. This 1-acre property has been owned by the city since 1998. Long-term ownership was never our intention, and over the years, the city has entered into sales agreements with three different developers. Proposed uses have included retail, restaurants, office, and rental apartments. Last May, staff received guidance from all of you to pursue opportunities for sale housing opportunities. In turn, we received 3 proposals. One from Craftmark Homes, proposed for sale residential units in the form of triplexes or 2/2s, as we call them. SSR Real Estate also proposed 2/2s. And Elmington Capital proposed building the 109 rental apartments, which had conditional site plan approval under an agreement with the previous contract purchaser, Ellisdale, you may recall. Based on the characteristics of the proposal and the developer's experience in Gaithersburg, staff was directed to negotiate with Craftmark Homes. Craftmark then conducted a detailed evaluation of the site, prepared concept plans, and estimated construction costs. This due diligence was more extensive than the previous contract purchasers had performed. An updated noise and vibration study, important because it's located alongside railroad tracks, as you know, quantified the impact of the train activity. Specifically, residential units really could not be designed and built to fully address interior noise levels when trains sound their horns when approaching Summit Avenue. These findings confirm potential disruption for future residents and their families as they try to sleep. On December 16th, regrettably, but not surprisingly, after the findings of that study, Craftmark did notify the city that the developer would not be pursuing development of the site. With the information from this latest evaluation, the adoption of a new zoning code, and a history of uncompleted proposals, it's time for a reset. Staff will be reevaluating the potential development opportunities associated with the site over the next few months, and we'll keep you apprised. That's all I got, Jed.
All right, thank you, Tom. Disappointing news. We were definitely hoping that would work out, but we understand and look forward to going back to the drawing board and seeing what we can get done, what the highest and best use of that property will be. Okay. We are going to move on to ordinances, resolutions, and regulations. Tech team, if you can bring up Brian Fields from our acting director of Public Works, that would be great. We are going to talk about a pavement condition survey. Welcome, Brian.
Good evening. Brian Fields, acting Public Works Director. I have some just brief remarks on this item, no presentation. This item is requesting approval of a resolution to authorize the city manager to amend the contract with IMS Infrastructure Management Services for the city's pavement condition survey to provide additional services consisting of a citywide sidewalk condition survey. Back in September, the city entered into a contract with IMS for the pavement condition survey in an amount just over $123,000. That project is in process and expected to be completed by the end of April. City is now seeking to perform a sidewalk condition survey, which will cover all city sidewalks, which is about 115 miles, plus about 25 miles of sidewalks on the state roadway system that the city is responsible for maintaining, for a total combined 140 miles of sidewalks. To our knowledge, this will be the first time the city has undertaken a formal citywide sidewalk condition survey. What it will do is it'll enable the Public Works Department to implement a new approach to sidewalk maintenance that is data-driven, proactive, and programmatic, similar to the approach currently used for asphalt street maintenance. The project includes delivery of a final report, which provides a recommended sidewalk rehabilitation plan, budget analysis, and funding scenarios covering a 5-year period. The data collected will be integrated into our GIS system. IMS performs the sidewalk condition survey using what's termed a sidewalk surface tester, which is essentially a golf cart type vehicle that comes equipped with data collection technologies, including various lasers and sensors. This device collects geo-referenced high-resolution imagery of the sidewalk surface along with profile measurements. That data collected is processed to quantify the type, severity, and quantity of sidewalk surface distresses, including vertical displacements, which are those very important trip hazards, as well as horizontal separations. Contractor IMS has extensive experience in performing sidewalk condition surveys, and they're available to perform this work at a cost of $72,797. Sidewalk condition survey is expected to start in March and be completed before the end of this calendar year. If this program is successful, as we intend it will be, We anticipate performing it every 3 years in conjunction with the pavement condition survey. That completes my presentation, and I'd be glad to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Brian. Questions or comments from the council? We'll go with Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say I'm excited about this project. I know we have a number of pedestrian safety challenges on some of the sidewalks. I'm thrilled that some of the state highway ones are being included as well. I know that there's some of those that just, again, the more data that we have, the better we're going to be able to solve some of these and make the case for, additional funding in places where maybe we need some of our partners to chip in. So this is a great idea. I'm excited about it.
Thank you, Jim. Anyone else from the council? I knew Neil was going to raise his hand because he loves the lasers.
I love the lasers. I love the idea that we're doing this kind of data capture and really doing quantitative and detailed analysis. Jamil, are you in a disco?
I was playing the lasers for you.
I guess. Anyway, the fact that we're doing this means that we can, do thorough evaluations and fix things before they get too far broken. It's wonderful. It's a great thing that the city is doing, and I know the county's very jealous, so we should do more.
Thank you, Neil. We're going to go to Rob.
Thanks, Mayor. Echo the comments. I think this is a great idea. Did have a question. At 72,000, why isn't this within the city manager's authority to grant?
It's an amendment to an existing contract that was already 123,000.
And since we have not amended the current procedures to allow the city manager to give her authority over those amendments when they're under $100,000, but I think that's in the works, right? That's rhetorical.
Okay. Well done. Well played. So, Rob, would you like to move the resolution?
Yep, so moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. I will call the roll. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Councilmember Hernandez?
Aye.
Councilmember Harris?
Aye.
Councilmember Henderson?
Aye.
Councilmember Wu?
Aye.
And Councilmember McNulty?
Aye.
Okay, that carries 5-0. Thank you all very much. And thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. Do we have anything from the city attorney or from any other staff? Frank?
I will just briefly note that we may remember, some of us may remember a few years back facing concerns with preemption of our local authority, especially regarding telecommunications and small cell installations, primarily from the FCC, but also some legislation in that regard. We have been warned with a change of administration, as well as a new Congress, that we may face some of those same concerns, and it's just something for us to be on the watch for. Several years ago, we were able to work with other local governments across the country, both in opposing regulatory changes, but also where necessary, joining in litigation as well. And we will certainly keep watch on this once again.
Thank you. That's a really good point. Hopefully, in the intervening years, there's been some improvement in the way 5G infrastructure can be delivered. Maybe it doesn't have to be small towers in front of people's houses as it was back when it came up. So hopefully, anyway, I don't know. I haven't been following what the infrastructure requirements are, but hopefully that's the case. Anyway, I really appreciate you keeping your eye on that for us. That's great. Do we have anything from any other staff? Not seeing any hands going up. Okay, so let me just go back to my announcement, which is join us next week to talk for our discussion of this is Monday, January 13th, for our discussion about the CCOC, the Commission on Common Ownership Communities Alternatives. And then the next regular meeting will be on Tuesday, January 21st, because the 20th is the Martin Luther King Day holiday. Until next time, let's do great things, Gaithersburg. We are adjourned. Just assume that you heard a gong or you heard a gavel, because we are adjourned.